Hello everyone, I was going to make a video about the beta information. I'm gonna post the link of the blog if you want more information about this beta on the description. But it was a bit too long. A lot of things we knew already they were talking about. So I decided that maybe it's better to make a video not about the Q&A that you can watch on YouTube. Diablo post the entire stream already, but about a system that they really went into detail in this specific stream. Maybe the system that they have gone more into detail in this particular stream, and perhaps overall regarding Diablo 4. And that system is the defensives in Diablo 4, in particular the armor. Okay, how the armor works in the game, why is the armor important, and the defenses overall, and the choices you have in Diablo 4. So first, a bit of context, okay, because this is the developer that is gonna talk about the armor system. He has a bit of an accent, but if you're watching this video, no one has a worse accent than myself on the internet. So let's try to give him a chance. He explains things very good. It's just that I just wanted you right ahead, right?
Diablo 4 developer livestream. My name is Adam Fletcher.
So to give you a bit of context, I'm gonna show you the introduction to the developer, okay? That is gonna talk about this armor system inside Diablo 4.
I'm the community lead for the Diablo franchise, and I'm joined here by three wonderful guests. We have Meng Song, who is our lead system designer on Diablo 4.
That's the guy that is gonna talk about the armor, okay? Meng Song.
The first Blizzard title each of you worked on. I'll start with Meng.
I started working on Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne, making multiplayer maps.
That's crazy.
Multiplayer maps. I mean, this guy's old school. This guy, Warcraft 3. I prefer the StarCraft Saga always, but hey, the guy's old school. Look at that. He's a gamer. That's the context more or less who the guy is. He's gonna talk. Okay, let's jump now right into the actual system he explains. Okay, because there's not a lot to it, but it's gonna be very relevant. I wanna play it in hardcore, and particularly I like to knowing the defensive systems, because defensive you can always scale more. The defensiveness you need to understand it so you know your limits, particularly in hardcore, right? Let's jump right into it, shall we?
Dive into the armor systems within Diablo 4. So Meng, take us through it.
Take us on.
I'm happy to talk about
Carry this dying company that's in symbols.
Diablo 4 armor is the major way for player to mitigate incoming damage.
Armor mitigates damage.
Physical damage.
Reasonable.
The major way for people to acquire armor is through the 5 armor slots. There are helm, chest, pants, boots, and gloves. And mostly for fantasy reason, we made armor, chest armor, and pants provide the most.
So 5 pieces, right? The 3 main ones, the straight line, helmet, chest, and pantsuit. They're gonna provide more armor. Okay. Then gloves and boots.
Armor value, while boots and gloves provide the smallest amount of armor value. The armor value on an item is depends on the item's power. And in Diablo, we use the item power value to represent the power of the item.
Yeah,
And
I don't think.
As far as I understand, this is your score. You have an item level 10. It has X amount of armor. You find another one level 18. It's gonna have more armor. It's gonna keep scaling. It's gonna be more powerful. There's gonna be examples when it's not gonna be the case. Maybe one synergizes better with your will, but as a general rule, it's gonna provide you with more stats.
We've talked a lot about how item power works. Can you describe what it means for Diablo 4?
yeah, so in Diablo 4, the item when they start dropping, it's based on the monster's power, and we need a value to represent how powerful this is. Like when you start getting more challenging content in the later world tier, you'll see you'll get more and more powerful item, and we need something to evaluate that, then represent that power. So we use the item power to represent that power, and you can see that.
At first, I thought he was going to mention, yeah, we know this normal, blue, magic, rare, yellow, epic, legendary, whatever. But no, we're talking about here is item level. a bit disappointing, but let's continue with the and start right into the actual system, okay, of armor.
And therefore it's guaranteed you always have a certain amount of damage mitigation against. Exactly. Because of this, when you loot higher power items, you naturally gain higher amount of armor. And therefore it's guaranteed you always have a certain amount of damage mitigation against physical damage.
And so, yeah, so armor works differently in Diablo 4 than it did in Diablo 3, right?
Yeah.
In particular for elemental resistances.
Yeah, exactly. Like in Diablo 4, this is kind of like a long story. Like we because of the mechanic, we made sure the item, the player have a certain amount of damage mitigation against the physical damage. But then we found out some monster they are doing non-physical damage, and that causes trouble for the player. Like for example, there's a dungeon boss.
That's when resistance come to play, you will think.
And that caused some serious balance problem for the encounter team, because for people who has a reasonable amount of shadow resistance, that boss is not that hard. But some people
World of Warcraft terminology. This is not Diablo 2.
Resistance. The boss is almost unbeatable. Like they will always get one shot for this boss. So to solve this problem, what we did is we made some changes to the armor system. So armor not only absorb or mitigate incoming physical damage, we also make it absorb a certain amount of non-physical damage.
Elemental damage, like magic damage.
For whatever percentage the armor absorbs physical damage, it also absorbs half of that amount of non-physical damage. For example, your armor absorbs 60% physical damage, so your armor will also absorb 30% of all the non-physical damage.
So fire.
When they're mentioning that the problem of armor is that it doesn't cover physical, I'm like, that's not a problem. That's how it's supposed to be, right? The problem is not that armor is only for physical. That's to be expected in an RPG. The problem is that they want to tone down and not tone down the game difficulty from Diablo 2, but from Diablo 3. No, I think it's bad. Like, I don't like it as a player that the system is so simplified, but I'm saying it's bad for the game. It's bad when you don't give players options. Diablo 2 is not a reference for Blizzard. Diablo 3 is. So when they want to make it something a little less risky and a little more accessible, you know, the level goes down, but from a level that was already down, right? But let's dive more into the system, how it works, okay? Because they go a bit into detail. Let's review it.
So I think you brought some charts to show, like in more detail, how the mitigation works.
Sure. So we have talked about like all the basic of how armor works. I want to dive a little bit deeper into actually how armor affects players' gameplay experience from level to level. The first thing I want to talk about is at each level we have a expected armor value for player, and based on that we calculate what's the damage reduction player can get at each level, and we balance the monster damage above that. And from this chart you can see at the beginning
item level and player level, they're not the same thing, right? But because you're gonna get guaranteed better level, it's gonna be all time year of higher item level, similar to Diablo 3. Okay, then when you start leveling at 20, you get 20 all the time. You go to 30, you get 30 all the time, you know, because that's gonna be like the base for the game. Both item level and place level, they are in practice the same, right? That's why it says damage is reduced for expected armor, damage reduction, and player level. You're expected at 45. This is expected at 45. You're gonna have cap armor. You're gonna have your helmet, chest, and pants level 45, gloves, and boots 45, and that's gonna give X amount of armor based on the balance they have made, right? And this speaks for itself for how strict Blizzard Mother Blizzard is making video games like, no, you're at this level, get this, do that, and do that. Okay, and with all this path, there's very narrow, and without giving the player many decisions, we're balancing the game based on that, right? You're making like a mirror, and we balance the game, right? The player and the mirror will be the game, right?
Goes through the
Yes.
armor.
So you see, like it's opposite to how much damage reduction we expect for player to get from level.
Without going much into the test, because this really doesn't necessarily much, it's important to know, okay? But honestly, it's more important to know that the more armor you have, the less the extra armor is gonna give you in terms of damage reduction. It's what we call diminishing returns, right? You're probably very familiar with this term. And the developers in games do this because if not, if this was the opposite, at some point you will just be immortal, right? If the more you get, the more armor you get, the more damage reduction you get, eventually you'll be immortal. So you need to make it so you get to a point where maybe it's very worth to get armor, perhaps between here and here, and from that point, we'll see what the extra damage reduction you get drops like crazy. You need to start thinking about alternative ways of defense.
Not only that they get this, that's kind of like happen at the late game when the challenger starts. They need to find a lot of other way, like they can look for, for sorcerer class, they can look for energy shield. For druid and barbarian, they look for fortified power, and for rogue class, they look for more dodge chance. So not only they build on the armor and resistance to mitigate the damage, at the late game, because the challenge becomes so tough, the world become the monster is so harsh. They need to find multiple ways to be able to survive in this harsh world.
Okay, here we got introduced to extra layers of defense. Honestly, surprisingly, like that sounds like BOE, right? Evade 45, and then seal in the case of the sorcerer. So it's a Diablo 2 mechanic, will be like a MOM, but in originally like the energy seal comes from Diablo 2, right? Technically it comes from Diablo 1, but yeah, Diablo 2, right, is when it popularized, everyone knows about it. So those are extra layers on defense. Now we get into the damage reduction from the perspective of the attacker, okay? If the armor is 2000. So you're getting attack, how much you mitigate based on the attacker level, okay, or the level of the monster, if you have 2000 armor.
So far, I have been talking about like all of this is one player fighting the equal level monster. So next I'm gonna talk like what if you fight against a different level monster? If a monster higher than you or a monster lower than you. So this chart shows a player with 2000 armor. What happened? How much damage reduction it actually absorb for that 2000 armor when they fight against different level monster? And you can see like the higher the monster level is, the less damage reduction this 2000 armor actually absorb. And you can see like at a lower level, they actually already like reach the damage reduction cap.
Damage reduction cap, as far as I know, level 1 2000 armor is more than you can have. At level 17 is what you're supposed to have, 2000. Which is normal that, I don't know, it's not that high coming from Diablo 3. It's high coming from Diablo 2, but I think it's kind of fine, right? So, as far as I'm reading this, 17 is where you should have around 2000 armor to cap it, to be like, okay, full set of 17s. And again, the problem is not this on its own. The problem is that at level 29, you need to have 29 year to have the armor required, right? That year is going to give you more armor, so you keep up with attacker. It's the 8 and level process. Obviously, in RPGs, you need to keep up with attacker's level based on the level of your year. It's more the year score type of thing. It's something I don't like for Diablo. You're gonna say that it's nothing out of the ordinary, but if you think about that, like, for example, sometimes you can keep up because even if you don't have, in other RPGs, maybe you don't have the armor, the year armor of 25, maybe you have a level 17 seal that has very good block for 17. So you don't need that much armor on the seal because the seal provides you with a blocking chance that is gonna mitigate not only, let's say not 80 because these numbers are a bit stupid honestly, but let's say I don't know the armor that you will get, you go from 40 to 45, but maybe the seal blocks 10% more than the seal that is your year, right? Then you're really mitigating in practice more than the year. Now, with this system of year score and the fact that you need to keep up, as far as I know, as far as I'm seeing, you don't need to keep up too much with the year score of your level to keep up with the attacker's level. In this game Diablo, there's gonna be different areas with different monsters, different events with different levels, so you're gonna need to be really careful with that, particularly when you're playing hardcore. Then you're losing a little bit of that charm of, hey, maybe I have a level 20 seal that is super good because of the blocking and keeping out to 53. It feels like more like, no, you're gonna need to event all the levels upgrade to the items you get from the events, right? Without thinking much, and that armor not only is gonna give you physical damage reduction, it's gonna give you elemental damage reduction. It's not a system that I personally like.
Set for armor, which is 85%. But when you like for 2000 armor, usually the player can acquire this amount of armor around level 30.
Right.
But if you see this level 30 character,
30 to 17.
A level 100 monster, the 2000 armor can actually only absorb 5% of the incoming damage.
And that's normal, okay? It's more like this system aligned with physical and elemental damage reduction combined. We need to see about the other layers they have mentioned of defense, because this seems like the super main one, and then on top of that you need the other ones. Doesn't seem that you're gonna have many choices. And the year score, okay? But if this was, this happens in PoE too, right? To some extent. Depending on the armor and the attacker, it's gonna mitigate some stuff. It's not about that, it's gonna be about the year score dropping from monsters. You need to keep up all the time with the year score. The Paragon system that is gonna be in Diablo 4, right? The different levels as you progress. It's more about this. It feels like players won't have many options. It's just all gonna be about year score, stack armor, and then at some point, okay, let's think about these layers. But it seems too simplified.
Which is pretty minimum. So that means when you want a player for them to challenge a higher level monster, not only the monster deal more damage, they also
hurt your feelings
of your armor.
So I'm gonna need more armor as I level up.
Yeah, yep. During
reasonable
campaign, like while you're doing campaign, or you do the open world content, it's not a big issue because most of the monsters scale with you. But when you do the end game content like a Nightmare Dungeon or Helltide, a lot of time you are forced to fight higher level monster, and in those cases, you will take like this built-in punishment to for the player. So you need to like find a way to mitigate that the more damage. Some people they build up their offensive power. They try to finish the combat faster so that they can take less damage. Well,
Diablo 3 style.
Find all the way like we said. Going through Paragon system, skill tree, item affixes, and legendary power, using all the ways to mitigate that.
Here we're gonna have a little bit of gameplay to combine to the damage mitigation to monsters, okay? Damage mitigation that the monsters themselves get based on their level.
Added damage mitigation to monsters in Diablo 4, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to talk about. So we used to not have a damage mitigation for monster. So monster used to not have armor. So however amount the damage player deals, that's however amount of damage the monster gonna take. So it has an advantage. It's pretty straightforward. It's really easy to understand. But it also has a problem that is whenever we want to increase the monster's defense power, the only way we can do it is through increasing the monster's hit point. like we say, from level 31, a monster from level 31 to 32, we want to increase their defense power, the time to kill by 10%. That means level 32 monster gonna have 10% more hit point or life than the level 31 monster. If you do this from level 1 to level 100, and at the end it ends up with a super big number, like billions or even trillions. And for player to be able to kill this monster in a reasonable time, the player needs to deal like billions of damage. And in Diablo 4, we show this damage number as a floating combat text. We cannot hide it. And so because the number is so big, so long, it covers a big chunk of the screen.
Yeah, it's hard to understand too. Like,
yeah,
reading, combat in Diablo is really fast. You want to be able to quickly understand how much damage you're doing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep the numbers down.
Yeah. We try to solve this problem. Also, we get a lot of feedback from community. They also don't like this.
I mean, well, something basic. We come from Diablo 3, okay? Going back to the reference being Diablo 3, where the scaling went out of charge. Now they figure it out, okay? It took them one game, 12 years or 15, but they figured it out. We put damage reduction, armor, call it resistance, call it whatever. So the numbers don't have to scale that much, and we keep it a bit more constrained, right? Instead of having a progressive scale that gets off the chart, no, we have a more normal scaling with numbers being a bit more reasonable, because flashy numbers are cool. Seeing you do thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of damage is good, but at some point where you get to billions or millions, the numbers become completely ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. And more for a medieval RPG style like Diablo, keeping the numbers reasonable and low is very important, obviously. So I'm glad they figured it out, you know. So mostly this is the system I'm gonna take into play. Okay, armor being damage reduction for physical damage, but also elemental. And there's gonna be some other layers of defense we don't know much about. Armor being less efficient as it goes up, expected. Armor having dismission returns on damage reduction being getting dismission returns expected. Paragon levels, the Paragon skill tree, and perks affect also damage reduction. Also something that seems reasonable. And we'll have to go a bit more into detail into the other layers of defense. I think it's a bit of a simple system. Okay, the fact that the armor not only gives physical reduction but also elemental damage, but all is gonna be relying on what other layers of defense there are. Still, armor seems like the primary defense system. Like you're gonna need to stack armor, and then you're gonna rely on other layers of defense based on your class and how you wanna play. So it's already a very simple system that I'm not a big fan of. The armor providing both types of damage reduction to physical and elemental. And seems like it's not like something that is giving players a lot of options. So for that, I'm slightly disappointed. But despite all that, you know, depends on the player, depends what you're expecting from Diablo 4. I shouldn't be expecting something complex like PoE in any case. So doesn't have to be necessarily bad. It's just that coming from Diablo 3, anything that sounds a bit like simplification in that regard, and remember Diablo 3 had both resistance and armor were separate system. Even that, for example, dodge was something that they implemented, they removed. I don't even know what it is right now because they put it in the altar this season. So I don't even know if the dodge is in the game. It's not in the game. It is, but it's kind of not. It's like a layer on the face that is there, but you know, it's not very used. So it's kind of weird. Coming from Diablo 3, I'm a bit scared about this simplification of the game. I wanted to explain to you more or less what the developers think about the layers of defense of Diablo 4. Maybe, again, for you, it's not such a big deal. Something simple, something you can easily understand and have fun with. Can be positive, depending on the attitude of the player. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you enjoy Rod Ferguson getting a pie to his face. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next one.